Hey lighting fanatics, here's an Envision 9-watt A-style compact fluorescent light bulb with an intermediate base. So this is a style of CFL that many different manufacturers made back in the day. There's not really anything special about this, it's just a regular helical coiled tube inside of a glass envelope that's supposed to make it look more like an incandescent bulb. And then we still have the plastic thing around the ballast, but we have an A17 intermediate base. So some light fixtures used this base, not a whole lot, but some did. I think certain ceiling fans did, maybe to stop people from putting bulbs that were too high wattage inside of them. And I think some lamps used this size base as well. But this CFL was obviously made to be a replacement to an intermediate based incandescent bulb that would be used in one of those fixtures. The base itself is actually brass, which is almost unheard of on newer CFLs like this, but this particular one is brass, so that's kind of interesting. And it has a black ceramic insulator. And then of course there's the top of it again. I'll shine the filament viewer inside of it later and see if we can see the tube inside of this. And then here's our ballast thing down here, is an Envision branded CFL, which I'm pretty certain is some kind of Home Depot brand. I think they used this brand before they switched to EcoSmart sometime in the early 2010s. And they sold a lot of CFLs under this brand, but this CFL is actually manufactured by TCP, like many of the earlier Home Depot CFLs were. First Commercial Electric, and then Envision, and then the EcoSmart ones were manufactured by TCP until TCP stopped manufacturing CFLs in 2020, and then they had to switch to Fight Electric, so the new ones are now Fight Electric made, but this is an older TCP made one. Now, of course, we have our classic arrow seen on a lot of TCP CFLs. I think it's telling you to put this in base down, which is actually a very logical thing to put on this bulb, because when you have a CFL base up like this, the heat from the tube rises up and it kills the ballast. Then we have a number on the bottom here which looks like it would be a date code, but if you actually inspect it, it's not really logical to be a date code. The best that I can determine here is that it would be from 2008 because of the 08 at the beginning, but it definitely could not be August 21st of 2024. This bulb is way too old for that, so maybe it's a serial number that decodes into a date code. Really not sure on that. And then here we have some information about the bulb actually here. Let's see, it is so tiny I can hardly even read it. At the top we have an SKU number from Home Depot, I guess. Then below it we have the model number 5AB091. I think, if I'm reading that correctly. 120 volts, 60 hertz, 9 watts, 0.15 amps, and a number. Consult local codes for proper disposal. Yeah, because we got mercury in here. Don't throw it in the trash like most people did, and then we got a lot of mercury in the environment. FCC UL listed. And something below that, Self-Ballasted lamp, that's something to do with the UL listing. HG, this must be from after 2003, which would make sense. And then we have a whole bunch of caution crap here. there is the etch of the bulb, so let's go ahead and take the dimensions of this bulb real quick. Alright, so lengthwise, this bulb is approximately 4 inches long, maybe slightly less. And then I measured this earlier actually, and I think it's 17.87 inch wide, so an A17 size bulb, a little bit smaller than an A19. Here is an A19 incandescent bulb to compare this with, and you can see that it is a little bit smaller than the incandescent. Not by a whole lot, but slightly. But on the contrary, this is what it's actually intending to replace. This is an A15 size bulb. And if you compare this to the CFL, yeah, the CFL is significantly larger in all respects. So this may not fit in every fixture that this fits in. I tend to imagine this probably would fit in most fixtures that this would go in, but it's possible that there might be a few that this wouldn't fit in, so just keep that in mind. But we do have the same intermediate base here. Now, of course, as promised, let's see if we can get a good view of the tube inside using the filament viewer. So let's turn that on. You can kind of see it a little bit. You can see the gaps in it when I brush over them here. But it's just your standard curly Q helical tube inside of there. Nothing special whatsoever. It looks like every other CFL that's been made in the past 30 years inside of it. The unique part is that it has the cover over it, so it looks more like a standard incandescent bulb. Whether that's actually a good or accurate effect, I'll let you be the judge of that, but that's what this is intending to be. Alright, you know the drill. Let's get this screwed into the socket. Okay, I'm screwing it in. How come it's not going in? Oh, that's right, we need an adapter. We need this intermediate to medium base adapter, because of course this will not fit into our socket without this adapter. So now we can screw it in. Alright, jokes aside, let's actually test our bulb here. So let's turn this on in 3, 2, 1. And it's going to start out very, very dim, because being a covered CFL, this is designed to operate at a hotter temperature than a regular CFL tube. And as such, in order to get to the highest efficiency that it can be, it has to warm up quite a bit so it's operating at optimal temperature. So we're going to be sitting here and waiting for this to warm up for quite some time. So let's go. Alright, I think we're pretty much warmed up here. That actually didn't take quite as long as I was expecting it to. I think that was maybe about 45 seconds to a minute. But here is the bulb all warmed up here. And let's take a look at about how bright it is here. It's not terribly bright, but it's only supposed to be a 40 watt equivalent CFL at 9 watts. So I'd say this is pretty equivalent to a 40 watt incandescent, no complaints there. Maybe slightly dimmer, but not a whole lot, and it's possible it might still need a tiny bit more warm up time, but that is a look at how bright it is. So let's check out the power draw. Alright, we're running at 121.4 volts. And we're drawing 0.13 amps, which is slightly less than it claimed, 0.15. but we're actually drawing 9.7 watts, which is actually pretty good compared to what it's advertised as. But we're probably going to find, if we continue going down here, that our power factor is pretty bad, 0.6. But that's a running trend with these CFLs. Not very many of these are power factor corrected because these are intended to be used in residential settings where you don't get penalized for bad power factor. Let's get a little bit of a CRI test here. Looks like the red is actually pretty good on this bulb. Much more vibrant than the neodymium halogen bulb I just looked at. That thing, honestly, I didn't like the color rendering on that one bit. But it looks like the blues and greens are a little bit muted on this bulb. So, not the best color rendering, and I'm certain this is probably going to be 80 to 82 CRI. That's what these all are. But there's what the CRI looks like on this bulb. So, I guess we will go ahead and get the main room lights turned back on. And then we will unscrew this bulb from the socket. And it looks like it came out with the adapter. So we will also have to unscrew this adapter from the bulb. Let's take one last look at all the details of this bulb, starting with the top of it, then the base, intermediate shaped, and brass. Very interesting. I wonder why they went with brass on this bulb. Maybe that's all they could get for an A17 base at this time. I don't know. And then there is the X, which is blurry. There we go. Envision. Well, if you enjoyed what you saw, be sure to leave a like down below. Feel free to leave a comment. And if you want to see more cool lighting videos in the future, be sure to subscribe. See you next time.